Carlos Ramirez, owner of NVS Audio in Roselle, New Jersey. Sly shipped us his bike from Virginia, his Road Glide. He had a shop attempted install on the bike. He just wasn't happy with the way it sounded, and he knew we could make it right for him. So the bike has all really good equipment too. So the bike had Hertz 8-inch mid-bass drivers. Everybody knows it's one of my favorite 8-inch mid-bass drivers, 2 in each bag. So this bike should have been able to create a lot of bass. That was not the case because of the amplifier that they chose. So to run these woofers properly, we feel that they need 300 to 400 watts apiece. They used a Shure Vega amplifier that provides 80 watts times 4. So in total, each of these woofers, where it's getting less than 80 watts. I say less than 80 watts because they used aluminum wire instead of oxygen-free copper wire. So there was no chance that the amplifier could produce its maximum rated power. On top of that, they ran a factory battery. So it was a 6-speaker bike, so it was 4 8-inch woofers, 2 in each bag, nothing in the lids, and then 2 6.5s in the fairing. The bike was underpowered in our opinion. All the wiring needed to be upgraded, and then what's even worse, in order to take off the saddlebags, he had to remove the seat because they notched out the top of his bag and ran the wire through the top, and then used a bunch of quick connectors to connect the woofers together. The connectors were coming apart, so one of the woofers weren't playing. And when they mounted the mounting plate for the 8-inch drivers, they drilled a bunch of 1/2-inch holes. So you got a bunch of wheezing and port noise. So I had Kyle go ahead and open up the complete 8-inch opening on both sides. Then we wrapped it in weatherproof mesh to keep water off the cone of the woofers. We used one of our NVS Audio XT60 harnesses, 100% oxygen-free copper. So we brought the quick connect to the bottom of the saddlebag so he no longer has to remove the seat. Then we upgraded the amplifier to a 1600.1 sound digital. So now the woofers are getting 400 watts apiece, and he's got 4 times the amount of bass he has before, and it sounds the way it's supposed to sound. We use an 800.4 bridge to run the 2 drivers in the fairing. Check out what we did for him. Carlos Ramirez, owner of NVS Audio in Roselle, New Jersey. We got Sly's bike delivered to us from Maryland for a wiring rescue. He's got all really good equipment. It's just put together the wrong way. I want to start with the saddlebags. There's a few things that we would like to do differently, and I'm going to tell you the reasoning behind it. First issue I have is they notched a hole in the top of his saddlebag to get the wire to run down. Then you have to open the lid to remove the bag. These woofers handle 300 to 400, well, that's another problem there. These woofers handle 300, 400, 500 watts apiece, and they used a trailer type connector. The problem with these connectors is maximum they could support is 10 amps of current. If you're running, let's say 500 watts to each bag, then you're gonna be flowing around 30, 40 amps of current, and it's 3 times more than this connector can handle. It will melt eventually under load. That's why we like to use Dean connectors, XT60, XT90, or Deutsch connectors. The wire is aluminum and it's too thin, so you expect 2 16-gauge wires to run 2 8-inch mid-bass drivers. You're gonna overdrive the wire and it's gonna melt. So that's number 1. Number 2, the connectors just fall off as soon as you touch them, just like that. Then when we go to the front, these amps require 8-gauge oxygen-free copper wire. They ran 10-gauge aluminum wire. The plug for the DSP they used as their distribution block. So they have the power ground remote coming in and then jumped off to power the line level converter, which is here. And then the cheapest set of RCAs in the world, the Dollar Star RCAs. So line level converter is not the best way to get signal from the factory radio, but they did it anyway, and then went into the DSP. You could just flash the radio, use the T-harness, and go directly in. Then, so they use this connector as a distribution block for these wires. They also use the connector in the amplifier as a distribution block. So you have a thick red wire and a thin red and black, and a thick silver. Amplifier's not bolted down. He doesn't like the way the bike sounds, doesn't have enough bass, it's getting noise, and he says it's kind of messy in the fairing, and I agree with him. So this is the before. What's going on here? This before, then we'll show you the after. So instead of cutting out the holes completely, they drilled a bunch of 1/2-inch holes. We're gonna fix it. So we did the best we could to repair the bag. It should sound way better now. So these are all the cables we pulled off the bike. As you can see, everything's thin and it's copper clad aluminum wire. We're replacing oxygen-free copper. We're not guessing, it actually says it on the wire. So as you can see, it's 8-gauge copper clad aluminum wire. We're replacing with oxygen-free copper. And then the crazy part is, this is the speaker wire we're using to run the 8s in the Saddlebag. It's the same thickness as the power wire that they use to run the amp. So we're using thicker and better wire to our speakers, the 8-inch mid-bass drivers in the bag, than they are to power up the amplifier that powers up the speakers. This is what they were using to run the speakers. So you can compare the thickness of their speaker wire to the thickness of our speaker wire. That's their 2-conductor, here's our 2-conductor. So you can clearly see the difference and the amount of current it's going to be able to flow. Here's our power cable to feed the amp. Here's their power cable to feed the amp. As you can see, ours is more than twice as thick. Theirs is aluminum, ours is oxygen-free copper, so ours will conduct more than 4 times the amount of current. So, CCA, OFC, double the thickness, quadruple the current. Good. Okay, so these are the connectors that they use. The problem with these connectors is they can't handle any more than 6-7 amps of current. So there's no way you can run 2 8-inch mid-bass drivers on these and run the appropriate amount of current. Plus these are aluminum. So the thickness that you see, it actually ends up being half of that with the current flow. Then they splice them together here. So we have connection, connection, connection. And then this wire they had running to the front, and there's 2 8-inch mid-bass drivers hooked up on this thin wire. This only 16 gauge says it right there. So we're using our NVS Audio XT90 quick disconnect speaker harness. So obviously our quick disconnect handles way more current than theirs. And we're using 10 gauge oxygen free wire. So after you hook up the 2 8-inch mid-bass drivers, there's still plenty of current for each of the drivers. So if you compare their wire size to our wire size, obviously ours is going to flow more current. They had the wire running like this, unprotected. Obviously ours is sleeved, so it's not going to get destroyed rubbing up against the plastics of the bike. This is just a better way to do it. So this harness is available. You can order it on our website. It's just our XT90 rear speaker harness. So we're going to replace this with... On our harness, it's going to have the wire furls on the amplifier side. So that's the side goes to the fairing or the torque pack. And then the other side's going to be raw, so you can solder onto the speaker connections like Kyle is doing now. With the grommet inserted in the bag, you just pull the loom through until you get the connector in the right position. And you're good to go. So Kyle completed a complete cutout on the bag. Now we have the polyester mesh to protect it from dirt getting in and getting on the face of the woofers. We're gonna put it back together now. We're gonna install the 8s. They've already been series, so now we can do our parallel connection. Okay, so this end of the harness is gonna end up down here, wire tied so it can easily go to the saddlebag. So we need to feed the wire up and keep it out of the way, so we'll feed it backwards towards the fairing. So we'll go up this way, behind the ABS pump, over the ABS pump, under the brake lines, and feed it up the backbone cover. We go up through the neck. I always recommend running it along the factory harness. And as you can see, there's plenty of room for it to go to the amplifier. And now you can wire tie it down along the way. So have your nice clean run along the backbone, down. So we're gonna wire tie it here. Comes over the top of the ABS pump, wire tie it here, wire tie it here. And we have more wire than we need, so we pull up the excess slack, but it's that easy. All the hard work's been done for you. Now you have a high, clean, high current connection.
Flip, put me outside, lock on your building, make me fuck up in your lift, lift, drift, fuck up in drift, drift, I make me fuck up in your gonna be so, girl, you won't capture my soul. I'm gonna be so, make you one more. I'm loose, even better done the para. Nothing Josie, I'm in Josie. Won't call if you want one Josie. I'm not playing with you, I'm not joking. My thought of mom is loaded. Me, you can fly, go, but I'm on duty, but I'm on low-key. They want do me, they want do me. Cause they want, when they want me, when they want me. I'm in San Francisco, Jammy. When they want me, when they want me. I just flew in from Miami. Peru, I'm loose, even better done the bar. Pour out the bottle, I wanna level up. When I'm with you, I never get enough. So I'm not in a rush. I can hear music when you're here. Tonight we're rolling, party too close.